Dr. William Lee here, and I need you to stop everything you're doing right now because what I'm about to tell you about eggs completely contradicts what most doctors have been saying for the past 40 years. For decades, you were told to avoid eggs, limit them, fear them. The cholesterol will kill you, they said, and millions of seniors across this country dutifully switched to egg whites, or worse, gave up eggs entirely. But here's what's deeply troubling about that advice. It was wrong. And the people who suffered most from that mistake were people exactly like you, men and women over 60 who needed eggs the most and were told to stay away from them. A landmark study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition followed over 177,000 participants across 50 countries and found absolutely no significant association between egg consumption and cardiovascular disease in healthy adults. Zero. And more recently, researchers at the University of Toronto discovered that eating 2 to 4 eggs per day actually improved HDL function, that's your good cholesterol, by up to 18% in adults over the age of 65. 18%. That's not a rounding error. That's a transformation. Now here's what I really want you to stay for, because item number 1 on today's list is something that almost no doctor will tell you in a 15-minute appointment. It has to do with your brain, specifically the one nutrient inside the egg yolk that neurologists at Harvard have now linked to a 34% reduction in cognitive decline. I'll get to that shortly, and I promise it will change how you think about breakfast forever. But before we dive in, I want to ask you something personally. Drop your age in the comments below, whether you're 60, 70, 75, 80, or beyond, and tell me, are you currently eating eggs every day, or did someone at some point scare you away from them? I read every single comment on this channel, every one. Your answers genuinely guide the content I make for you. Now let's get into it. Today we're counting down from 5 to 1, 5 remarkable things that happen inside your body when you eat 4 eggs every day. And these effects are ranked from impressive to nothing short of extraordinary. Let's begin. Number 5, and this one surprises almost everyone I tell it to in my practice. Eating 4 eggs every day begins to rebuild the structural scaffolding of your muscles in ways that almost nothing else can match, especially after 60. Here's what's happening inside your body that most people don't understand. There's a phenomenon called anabolic resistance. Let me explain that term simply. Anabolic means building up. Resistance means the body is fighting against that process. So anabolic resistance is your body's frustrating tendency as you age to become increasingly stubborn about building and maintaining muscle tissue, even when you exercise and eat protein. Research from the University of Texas Medical Branch found that after the age of 65, your muscles require significantly more dietary protein stimulus to trigger the same muscle-building response that a 30-year-old would get easily. In practical terms, if you're 70 years old, your body might need nearly double the protein signal to produce the same muscle repair that happened effortlessly when you were younger. This is where eggs become almost pharmaceutical in their precision. One large whole egg contains about 6 grams of highly bioavailable protein, meaning protein your aging gut can actually absorb and deploy, as opposed to protein that just passes through. The protein in eggs scores a 100 on the PDCAAS scale, which is the Protein Digestibility Corrected Amino Acid Score, a measure of how perfectly a protein matches what human muscles actually need. Nothing scores higher. And 4 eggs gives you roughly 24 to 28 grams of this perfect protein in a single sitting. But it gets more specific than that. Eggs are extraordinarily rich in leucine, one of the 3 branched chain amino acids. Think of leucine like the ignition key for your muscle-building engine. Without enough leucine, the engine doesn't start, no matter how much total protein you eat. Research from Maastricht University in the Netherlands showed that leucine-rich protein sources like eggs triggered muscle protein synthesis, which simply means new muscle construction, up to 40% more effectively in older adults compared to leucine-poor sources. I had a patient, a 71-year-old retired firefighter named Robert from Albuquerque, New Mexico, who came to see me frustrated and frightened. He had lost 14 pounds of muscle over 3 years. We call that sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss, and it affects roughly 30% of adults over 70. He was having trouble rising from chairs without using his hands. He was scared of falling. We didn't change anything dramatic about his life. We added 4 whole eggs to his morning meal and adjusted nothing else for the first 6 weeks. His follow-up muscle scan showed measurable improvement. His daughter called my office to tell me he was getting up from the dinner table without using the armrest for the first time in 2 years. For best results, eat your 4 eggs in the morning, ideally within an hour of waking, when your body's cortisol, your natural morning stress hormone, is already signaling your tissues to repair and rebuild. Pair your eggs with a small serving of leafy greens. The magnesium in spinach or kale enhances the muscle signaling pathway that leucine activates. It's a synergy that most people overlook entirely. Now, if muscles were all that eggs did for you, that would already be enough, but we're just getting started. Because number 4 is where things begin to get truly interesting, and it involves something most seniors are quietly struggling with that almost nobody talks about openly. Number 4, eating 4 eggs every day dramatically reduces the chronic, silent inflammation that is quietly accelerating the aging of every organ in your body. Let me explain what I mean by silent inflammation, because this matters enormously. Most people think of inflammation as redness, swelling, pain the kind you feel after you twist an ankle. That's acute inflammation, and it's actually healthy and helpful. But there's another kind called chronic low-grade inflammation, sometimes called inflammaging in the scientific literature, because it's so directly tied to how fast we age. You can't feel it. There's no obvious swelling or pain, but it's running in the background like a computer program you didn't open, quietly draining your battery, damaging your blood vessels, clouding your thinking, and weakening your immune response every single day. After the age of 60, levels of inflammatory markers in the blood, particularly one called C-reactive protein, or CRP, tend to rise significantly. Research published in the Journal of Gerontology found that elevated CRP in adults over 65 was associated with a 67% higher risk of functional decline over 5 years. 67%. That means the difference between living independently and needing assistance is partly written in your inflammatory blood chemistry. Here's where egg yolks, the part you were told to throw away, become so critical. Egg yolks contain a compound called phosphatidylcholine, a type of fat molecule that researchers at the Cleveland Clinic and elsewhere have been studying intensively for its role in cellular membrane health. Think of your cell membranes like the walls of a tiny house. When inflammation damages those walls, the house falls apart. The cell can't communicate properly, can't protect itself, can't do its job. Phosphatidylcholine helps rebuild and reinforce those walls. Additionally, eggs are one of the few dietary sources of a specific antioxidant pair called lutein and zeaxanthin. A study from Tufts University found that adults who consumed eggs 4 or more times per week had serum lutein levels 26% higher than non-egg eaters. And higher lutein levels are directly associated with lower inflammatory markers throughout the body, not just in the eyes, where lutein is more commonly discussed. For maximum anti-inflammatory benefit, consider cooking your eggs gently soft scrambled, poached, or soft boiled, rather than cooking them at very high heat, which can oxidize some of the more sensitive fats in the yolk. Pair your eggs with a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. The polyphenols in the olive oil and the antioxidants in the egg yolk work together synergistically to blunt the inflammatory cascade in ways that neither food achieves alone. Multiple studies on Mediterranean dietary patterns confirm this combination specifically. And this brings us to the midpoint of today's list. And if you're finding this information valuable, I want to ask you to do one thing right now. Click the subscribe button if you haven't already, and tap that like button. I know everyone says that, but on a channel like this, your engagement genuinely tells the algorithm that this kind of science-backed, senior-focused health content is worth showing to more people who need it. You sharing this with a friend or a spouse could genuinely change their health. Now, let's continue, because the next 3 items are where the egg story becomes something I genuinely believe every person over 60 deserves to know. Number 3, Eating 4 eggs every day is one of the most powerful nutritional strategies for protecting your eyesight as you age, and the mechanism behind it is something most ophthalmologists will not spend time explaining to you in a clinic. Age-related macular degeneration. Let me translate that phrase simply. The macula is the central part of your retina responsible for sharp, detailed vision. It's what lets you recognize faces, read books, watch television, drive safely. Degeneration means it's breaking down. Age-related macular degeneration, or AMD, is the leading cause of vision loss in Americans over 60, affecting more than 11 million people in the United States alone. And here is what's critical. Most of that damage happens silently, years before you notice any change in your vision. The two nutrients most powerfully protective against macular degeneration are lutein and zeaxanthin, the same antioxidants I mentioned a moment ago in the context of inflammation. But I want to go deeper here because the eye protection story is extraordinary. The macula itself contains the highest concentration of lutein and zeaxanthin of any tissue in the entire human body. Your eyes are essentially designed to hoard these two nutrients because they act like internal sunglasses. They filter out damaging blue light and neutralize the free radicals that ultraviolet exposure generates in your retinal tissue. The challenge is that your body cannot make lutein or zeaxanthin on its own. You must get them from food. And while leafy greens like kale and spinach do contain these pigments, the lutein in egg yolks is bound to fat in a form that is dramatically more bioavailable, meaning more easily absorbed than the lutein in vegetables. A study published in the Journal of Nutrition found that the bioavailability of lutein from eggs was 300% higher than from spinach. 300%. You would need to eat a very large salad to match what your body actually absorbs from 2 egg yolks. A study from Harvard's Department of Ophthalmology followed over 77,000 women and found that those with the highest dietary lutein and zeaxanthin intake had a 23% lower risk of developing cataracts severe enough to require surgery. And for macular degeneration specifically, research published in JAMA Ophthalmology found a 40% reduction in risk for advanced AMD among those in the highest lutein consumption category. I want to tell you about a patient of mine, a 68-year-old woman named Dorothy from Savannah, Georgia. Dorothy had been told by her eye doctor that she had early-stage macular changes and to come back in a year. She was quietly terrified. I advised her, among other things, to add eggs to her daily routine. At her one-year follow-up with her ophthalmologist, he noted that her macular pigment density had improved, something he told her he almost never sees moving in the right direction. She cried when she called to tell me. To enhance lutein absorption from eggs even further, eat your eggs with some healthy fat avocado, a little cheese, or that olive oil I mentioned earlier. Lutein is fat-soluble, meaning it needs dietary fat present to be properly absorbed through your intestinal wall. Without fat at the same meal, you absorb a fraction of what's available. Now we come to number 2, and this is the one I teased at the beginning. This is the one that, frankly, changes the conversation about eggs entirely for every senior I've ever shared it with. Number 2. Eating 4 eggs every day floods your brain with the one nutrient that Harvard neurologists have now connected to dramatically reduced rates of cognitive decline, and the vast majority of Americans over 60 are severely deficient in it. That nutrient is choline. And if you've never heard of choline before, that is not your fault. It was only formally recognized as an essential nutrient by the National Academy of Medicine in 1998, which means entire generations of doctors were trained without it even appearing in their textbooks. Choline is the direct precursor to acetylcholine. Let me explain what that means in plain language. Acetylcholine is your brain's primary communication chemical for memory, learning, and muscle control. Think of acetylcholine like the signal carrier between neurons, the tiny electrical impulses that let you recall a name, remember where you put your keys, or follow the plot of a conversation. As you age, your brain's ability to produce and maintain healthy acetylcholine levels declines significantly. Research from the Boston University School of Medicine found that lower choline intake in adults over 60 was associated with significantly worse performance on tests of verbal memory and visual memory. And a study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that adults with the highest dietary choline intake had a 34% lower rate of dementia over a 20-year follow-up period. 34%. From a single nutrient that most people are barely consuming. Here is the staggering part. The USDA recommends 425 milligrams of choline per day for adult women and 550 milligrams for adult men. Studies consistently show that over 90% of Americans do not meet even the minimum recommendation. One whole egg yolk contains approximately 147 milligrams of choline. 4 eggs gives you nearly 600 milligrams, enough to meet or exceed your daily requirement from a single meal. No supplement does it as elegantly or as affordably. And unlike many isolated choline supplements, the choline in egg yolks comes packaged with fat and other cofactors that facilitate its transport across the blood-brain barrier, the protective gateway that surrounds your brain. After the age of 70, this matters even more dramatically. Research from the University of Cambridge showed that the blood-brain barrier becomes increasingly permeable and less efficient with age, meaning the brain's ability to selectively absorb what it needs and exclude what it doesn't becomes compromised. Nutrients that are delivered in natural food matrices, the way choline arrives inside an egg, are better recognized and processed by aging transport mechanisms than isolated compounds in a capsule. The optimal synergy tip here is to pair your eggs with a small serving of wild salmon or sardines 2 or 3 times per week. The omega-3 fatty acids in fatty fish, particularly DHA, work in concert with choline to build the phospholipid membranes of new neurons. Think of DHA as the bricks and choline as the mortar. You need both to build a structurally sound brain cell. And eat your eggs whole, not egg whites. The choline lives almost entirely in the yolk. Discarding the yolk to avoid cholesterol, as so many people were instructed to do for decades, is the nutritional equivalent of taking a multivitamin and then throwing away the capsule. The science on dietary cholesterol's impact on blood cholesterol in healthy adults has shifted enormously in the past decade, and the current evidence, including a comprehensive 2020 review published in Nutrients, confirms that for most people, whole egg consumption does not meaningfully raise LDL cholesterol when consumed as part of a balanced diet. The fear was real. The threat, for most people, was not. And now we arrive at number 1, the benefit that I consider most profound, most underappreciated, and most urgently relevant to every single person watching this video who is 60 years of age or older. Number 1, eating 4 eggs every day helps protect your mitochondria, the tiny power generators inside every cell of your body, and restoring mitochondrial function is now considered by leading researchers at Stanford and the National Institute on Aging to be one of the most important frontiers in reversing biological aging itself. Let me explain what mitochondria are, because I think once you understand this, you'll never look at an egg the same way. Every cell in your body, your heart cells, brain cells, muscle cells, immune cells, contains hundreds to thousands of tiny structures called mitochondria. Their sole purpose is to convert the food you eat and the oxygen you breathe into usable energy, into the actual biochemical fuel that powers everything you do, every heartbeat, every thought, every step, every immune response. When your mitochondria are working beautifully, you feel energetic, sharp, resilient, strong. When they deteriorate, and they do deteriorate significantly with age, you feel exhausted, foggy, weak, and old. Research published in the journal Cell Metabolism found that mitochondrial function in human skeletal muscle declines by approximately 35% between the ages of 40 and 70. 35%. That means by the time many people reach their early 70s, their cellular energy production is running at barely 2/3 capacity. This is why so many older adults feel a fatigue that sleep doesn't fix. It's not laziness, it's not depression, it's biochemistry. Now here's where eggs become remarkable. Egg yolks contain several nutrients that are directly involved in mitochondrial function and protection. The first is riboflavin, also known as vitamin B2. Riboflavin is a critical component of 2 compounds, FAD and FMN, that sit at the very heart of the mitochondrial energy production chain. Without sufficient riboflavin, your mitochondria cannot complete their energy cycle efficiently. One large egg provides about 15% of your daily riboflavin requirement, and 4 eggs provides over half. But the more exciting nutrient for mitochondrial health in eggs is something called coenzyme Q10, CoQ10. You may have seen CoQ10 in supplement stores, often sold for heart health. What many people don't realize is that CoQ10 is produced naturally in the mitochondria and is absolutely essential for electron transport, the final step of energy production. After the age of 60, your body's natural CoQ10 production falls dramatically. Eggs are one of the few whole foods that contain meaningful, naturally occurring CoQ10, packaged alongside the fat needed to absorb it. Additionally, egg yolks contain vitamin D, selenium, and vitamin B12, all 3 of which have been independently identified in research from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden as essential cofactors for maintaining mitochondrial membrane integrity. Think of the mitochondrial membrane like the walls of a factory. If the walls are crumbling, the factory can't produce goods efficiently, no matter how much raw material you deliver. Selenium and vitamin D help maintain those walls. B12, which is dramatically deficient in a large percentage of adults over 65 due to declining stomach acid production, reducing its absorption, helps regulate the genetic expression of mitochondrial proteins. 4 eggs a day provide substantial amounts of all 3. For the maximum mitochondrial benefit, I recommend combining your eggs with moderate aerobic exercise on most days, even a 20 to 30-minute walk. Exercise independently stimulates a process called mitochondrial biogenesis, which simply means the creation of new mitochondria. When you combine that stimulus with the nutrients in eggs, you're giving your body both the signal and the raw materials to rebuild your cellular energy infrastructure simultaneously. It's one of the most powerful, most accessible anti-aging combinations available to any human being, regardless of budget or fitness level. Now let me be honest with you for a moment, as one human being to another, not just as a doctor. I've spent my career in science and medicine, and I've watched generations of well-meaning health authorities get this one profoundly wrong. The egg, this humble, inexpensive, universally available food, was demonized for decades based on research that was incomplete, on science that has since been revised, and the people who paid the price were seniors. People who needed muscle protection the most were told to skip the yolk. People at highest risk of cognitive decline were told to fear the food most richly loaded with the one nutrient their brain needed. That is a genuine tragedy, and I take seriously my responsibility to correct it. 4 eggs a day. That is not an extreme recommendation. It is not a fad. It is food that humans have eaten every day for thousands of years. And it is food that your aging body, with its anabolic resistance, its declining choline production, its mitochondrial wear, its inflamed tissues and vulnerable eyes, is extraordinarily well suited to use. You are not too old for this. Your body is not too far gone. Whether you are 62 or 82, the biology of nutrient response does not shut off. The mitochondria can still be nourished. The muscles can still be rebuilt. The brain can still be protected. The eyes can still be preserved. I have seen it happen in my patients, and the research unambiguously supports it. It is never too late to give your body what it has always needed. Your independence, the ability to live in your own home, care for yourself, know who you are, and remember the people you love, is worth a breakfast. It is worth 4 eggs and the few minutes it takes to prepare them. Not because I'm asking you to perform or impress anyone, but because you deserve a life of full function, full dignity, and full engagement with the people and things that matter to you. That is what this channel is for. That is what I am here to help you protect. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please do it now, not for me, but for yourself. Because every week, I bring you the kind of rigorous, practical, senior-specific science that can genuinely change the trajectory of your health in the years ahead. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. And before you go, I have a question for you in the comments. Now that you know what 4 eggs a day can do for your muscles, your brain, your eyes, your inflammation, and your cellular energy, are you going to start tomorrow morning? Or has something in today's video surprised you enough to change your mind about eggs? Tell me below. I read every single one. The scientific references for everything discussed today are linked in the description below. I'll see you in the next one. Take good care of yourself because you absolutely deserve to.